You take a stroll into the morning sun. You make a happy meal, a portion for one. You steal the wallet of a man with a gun. You make this seem like a whole lot of fun. Yeah, you do. You're making shapes with your hands on a wall. You're drawing the net while you're taking a call. You wouldn't care Teach me to haggle, I'll teach you to swim. Get right back on the saddle, push me on the swing. Take me to Rio, I'll take you to Berlin. I'll give you some yarn and you'll give it some spin. Yes, you will. Now you're sitting shirtless in an oak tree. You've tied our legs and so now we have three. You'll dip your toes into the ice cold sea. I see your reflection is me. Yes, you're just dodging all the friendly fire. You're never dressed in the right attire. You miss the start of every game. You're my flame. You make hay when the sun don't shine. You don't need a dollar, you don't need a dime. You burn at both ends, yet still you're fine. You're my flame.
Cleaning up the things he left behind. Have you moved to find some peace of mind?
Okay, comrades, I know there's still quite a number of people just outside of the conference hall, but we will start back, and if anyone has the opportunity just to say to anyone who's outside, if they could make their way in, that'd be appreciated. So the first section that we're going to deal with now under plenary session 6 is in relation to equality. So there's motion 80 to deal with under this section, and motion 80 is a composite motion in the name of Cabran District Branch, the Ennis Branch and Labour Disability. So if there's a mover, I know Declan you're making your way up on stage, but you're actually going to move motion 80 is my understanding. Who is? Jerry, okay. So a mover then for motion 80, composite motion number 3. Will you stay there with Declan? Thanks. Just while the speakers making their way up to the stage, our spokespersons who are going to respond to the debate on equality, social protection and internal party affairs are Senator Annie Hoey, who's going to respond to the equality and social protection debate, and Senator... Apologies, so Annie's going to respond to equality, then Senator Mark Wall is going to respond to social protection, and then there's going to be a fight between Annie and Mark then in terms of who's going to deal with internal affairs. So Jerry Kerr then to move motion 80 in the name of Cabran District Branch, Ennis Branch and Labour Disability.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lisa. Just want to welcome the disability community here, particularly Conor Dillon there and his mum Sally, first time here at conference. So it's great to see a whole gang together. My part of the motion, the first part of the motion refers to taking responsibility for past mistakes. Now, none of us like taking responsibility for mistakes, never mind past mistakes. And I want to first of all say that a lot of people I respect don't really like the idea of taking responsibility. Am I okay? Hello? Can you hear me okay
we can
now?
hear you.
Don't like to take. So I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can and as respectfully as I can. The reason I'm doing it is because I've been around 30 years and I've been here for a lot of the stuff, especially the 11 to 16 government. And it was my darkest hour, and many of us in labour disability, during 13 to 14 when the medical card removal scheme was in place, and 71,251 medical cards were removed from everybody from children with severe congenital defects to women with cervical cancer to older people with motor neuron. Automatically, motor neural people got medical cards. During that time, half of them, can you believe it, didn't get them. Probably was our darkest hour, our most callous hour in government. But be that as it may, what happened was a staggering backlash. 85% of the people who said they would and had voted for us in Labour said they weren't voting for us again. And we dropped in the local election from 20% down to 6%. We always managed 10% on 15 seats. But despite 3 really good leaders, we have dropped and dropped and dropped down to 3% now. So it's an existential threat to us. Our 10% has been transformed, 3% to us and 7% to the Social Democrats, who said you can't trust Labour in government. So it's time for us to think a little bit outside the box. So what I'm asking you to do is the way to fix it. The way to fix it, I think, was already presented to us 4 years ago by Jack O'Connor and Alan Kelly, when they said, have a report, and we did some marvellous things in government, but look at it in the round and look at the things we did wrong and how we lost so much support and people didn't trust us anymore, and follow that report by a process throughout the whole country of constituencies where we talk, listen, and we present to people the good and the bad in a very balanced way. I wouldn't be up here talking to you now if that had continued, but unfortunately I think it was a big strategic mistake 2 years ago by our present leader, chair and executive council not to follow it up. But I think there still is a way out. The way out, I think, is probably the strength in human beings is, our greatest strength is that we can take responsibility for what we've done wrong. And people in Ireland, despite the critics and the pundits who may give out to us, people in Ireland will believe us, because in our soul we do look after people with disabilities. We made mistakes. Perhaps we were too enamoured with Fine Gael as a national government instead of realising we were there to moderate their excesses. So we made mistakes. So I'm asking you as a conference to have the courage to say, and our leader to say, 2 of the most powerful words in the world: I apologise. Thank you.
Melissa's just coming up to you now, Jerry. So we've Councillor Declan Mina then to second the motion.
Comrades and friends, my name is Councillor Declan Mina. I'm from the Cabrón District branch, and I'm one of the few disabled people in politics. I live with a rare genetic eye condition and I have 5% vision. I went to college and I studied computer science. I was not forced to do that, and I was not categorised to do that. I got a job. I wasn't forced or categorised to do that. And in 2020, I had the immense privilege of replacing Marie Sherlock on Dublin City Council, and I was not forced or categorised to do that. We need to scrap the Green Paper. It's wrong for so many ways, but one of them is it's in the wrong department, because we know the problem we are having with disabled people getting employment is not the disabled people. The problem is ableism. And blaming people into jobs that don't exist because employers are ableist is not going to work. And as the party of Connolly and Larkin, we should know which side are we on. I'm really proud that Labour have written a submission where we have listened to disabled people. Disabled people have contributed to it. We recognise the ableism as the root cause of disabled people not being employed. We recognise that it would be a better use of medical staff's time to be on the front line helping people instead of traumatising disabled people. And we recognise the cost of disability, unlike the government who have left the Indicom report on a shelf and done nothing. In other countries, disabled people generally have rights and generally have an understanding that they'll probably get the services they need. Well, in Ireland, we have fears. We have fears that someone in Intrio is having a bad day and is going to drown us in bureaucratic nonsense instead of helping us. We have fears that some idiot in the HSE can't use Excel and is going to run out of money in one district, denying us services that are available in other parts of the country. We are fearful of what the disgrace of a health minister, which business consultant jargon he's going to stand behind, instead of giving us services, and we're afraid of being homeless because 1 in 3 homeless people are disabled. I can't wait as a local election candidate to campaign on this, and the government have very stupidly extended the deadline, in my opinion, because we are going to bash them with this terrible green paper. We're going to trash it. And I want to summarise this motion very clearly so everyone can understand what we want. It's really simple. We want rights, not fears. Rights, not fears. Thank you.
Thanks, Declan. Are there any other speakers who'd like to speak to motion 80? Councillor Emma Cutlip.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, comrades. This is actually possibly one of the most important motions of this conference, in my view. We have just passed a very, very difficult referendum campaign that inadvertently brought about a broad conversation about disability rights in this country. And it fractured the disability community. And those of us who have spent much of our activism and lives fighting for care and fighting for rights and fighting for equality have found ourselves divided amongst each other, almost like the government using a business tactic like union busting. But this is people's lives, this is people's self. And one of the big problems with that message through the referendum was that as if disabled people are one homogenous group. We're not. I have no comprehension of the accessibility needs and the life that is lived of a wheelchair user. A wheelchair user might have no idea what it is like to live as a neurodiverse person or a person with medical conditions that disable their participation in society. Each of us is unique, and that's what disability rights is about, and we have to respect that. And it's an imperfect struggle, because none of us can truly understand the person next to us. And we understand our flaws as human beings, that we will not always be able to meet each other's needs simply because we don't understand them. But we are here to talk about them. And we are here to honestly be able to say, as a Labour Party, that we recognise that this struggle is imperfect, that we will not always get it right, but we will always strive to do better. We will always push ourselves to understand that little bit more, to ask the person next to us, what do you need? Is my understanding of your need sufficient? Are you being enabled to participate to your fullest ability? And how can I help you? How can I work with you? How can you work with me? And it's that truest principle of the Labour movement, that together we're stronger. And that's why this is possibly, to my mind, one of the most important motions at this conference. And I am very thankful for everybody who has stayed to this late day on a Sunday afternoon when we're all very, very tired to sit here and listen to it, because it is incredibly important. Our activists are exhausted. We are all exhausted fighting for basic dignity. And we're here today to say that we will keep pushing past that exhaustion in our imperfected responses to these vital issues. And I urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Are there any other speakers who want to speak to motion 80? Because we also have emergency motion number 2 to deal with. But Eileen, you're looking to speak to motion 80? Yep, so thanks, Eileen. It's 2 minutes then for each speaker responding.
I'll be as brief as I can. Thank you, Chair. Eileen O'Mahony, Ross Connolly Branch, Greystones. I'm speaking on behalf of this motion as I too am a disabled person. I'm disabled by virtue of the fact that I have ME, and it has disabled my life ever since I got it. My problem with the Green Paper was when I read it, I was absolutely horrified and shocked by it, to be absolutely honest with you. Because for a person like me, who has a disease, who up till recently was told it was possibly all in your head, and thankfully no longer can that be said, but for me to be going into that system, I would be told I'm fit to work. Because I look fine, I'm absolutely grand, but see me in 2 hours' time and I won't be, because I'd be tired. So that's why I'm totally in favour of this motion, that this Green Paper is absolute rubbish. It's abusive in its form, the simplest way to call it is absolutely abusive. And in relation to other matters for disability services, like they're just, I'm aware of other agencies, like there's the example of John O'God's, who were threatening to hand over their services to the HSE because they wouldn't give them enough money to run it. I know that John O'God's is not the only service in the ID sector that is not being given enough money to run their service. And there's battles on various committees about that matter at the moment. The government is not supporting people with disability as it should, and in relation to work, what it should be doing is providing the supports for people to enable them to work, to find a work that suits them, and to find employers who they too can support to employ people with disabilities. And that's really what's needed, not this abusive system. Thank you.
Emergency motion number 2 was circulated as part of Standing Orders Report number 2, so it's in the name of Labour Disability, and Councillor Declan Mina is going to move emergency motion number 2, but if it's okay, Declan, I might just read out the motion to the conference floor.
Can you read it out?
Yep, so the motion reads is, following the outcome and concerns expressed during the care referendum by representatives of disabled persons, conference recognises the obligation of the state to ensure the right of disabled citizens to live independent, autonomous lives in the community. Conference goes on to affirm the right of disabled persons to the necessary supports to realise that right and to include a personal assistance service. Conference mandates that the fulfilment of this right and supports are essential to any programme for government in which Labour will participate. Thanks, Declan.
Thank you, comrades, and Councillor Declan Mina, Cabron District Branch, and on behalf of Labour Disability, I move this emergency motion. We need to just be crystal clear here. I am a member of the Independent Living Movement Ireland. I believe I am disabled by society. And when we look at this and when we, think about what that means, it means that there are barriers in place that prevent me from living the life I want to live. As a councillor, I was privileged to kind of end the campaign almost for Independent Living Movement on the right to a PA. Because Dublin City Council takes so long for motions to get on the agenda, I put my motion on the agenda and it actually did pass. And I got to propose that as a disabled public representative, which unfortunately there are too few of us. The right to care. Care is something people have a right to, but it's the care that they choose. It's the way that they want to live. And for over 1,000 people, that right is ripped away because even though they're under the retirement age, the HSE has effectively warehoused them in nursing homes. This is effectively new institutionalisation. For me, the biggest inaccessibility to independent living is the housing crisis. And as I said before, disabled people are far more likely to end up in homelessness. Rights, not fears, I think really is the powerful way of pushing this argument and of saying once and for all, because we kind of assume we support this, but I think we have to be really, really crystal clear. The right is with the disabled person to live autonomously. And a PA service isn't a carer, it isn't home help. It is, you need people to live independently, so the state will provide those people to help you live independently. So we fully support this, and at the end of the day, we want disabled people, and we demand that disabled people live independently, and we fully confirm that that is Labour's position. Thank you.
Thanks, Declan. Is there a seconder for the emergency motion? Great, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. In a way, what Declan has presented to you now kind of is the tail on a very long dog of difficulty. Declan says, rights not fear, but it goes back to a time of rights not charity. And this great party was in the past, while Jerry was able to indicate to you, if you like, concerns about a recent past, this party has had a great historical beginning in services for disabled people, in employment for blind people back in the time of Brendan Corish, in the time of free travel of Frank Kluski. So we are a great party. This party is a house of many rooms, and we're glad as a disability organised group in it to inhabit one of those rooms and come, like today, to the General Assembly of where all of those rooms meet. We want to be listened to, consulted in terms of the motions that have been presented. You have put them into your programme. You can read our report in the report of the various sections of the party. We are the only party where we are genuinely listened to, where we are included. So do not be ashamed when we use words that seem to suggest isolation or a kind of tokenism. That's not meant in any way to the great people of this party. You believe in us, we need you, and we trust you to take the motions here today and see them as red lines in any future, because there will be a future very soon for our party leader to go to form a programme for government, and we want our motions and our concerns and your commitments for us to form part of the red lines in that commitment. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, delegates.
Great, thank you. Melissa's just coming up to you there. Any other speakers looking to speak to either of the motions? Emma, we are under pressure. Yeah.
Just given a previous statement with respect to the referendum, I think it's very important that this emergency motion was heard, and I thank Standing Orders for approving it. As I said previously, it was a very, very divisive campaign. There was the only ableist thing with respect to that campaign is the government's inaction in legislating for disabled people. There is no requirement for a referendum in order to give every disabled person in this country what is their right. And that needs to be recognised. The ableism in the room is the government. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emma. So I'm going to invite the party spokesperson, Senator Annie Hoey, up to respond to the debate.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm taking this motion on behalf of Deputy Duncan Smith, and I'm actually just going to put my stick there. So I'm standing in front of you as a newly disabled woman, fresh out of the box with my walking stick and my new disability. And it's something that I am learning to adapt to, and I think I still will be for a long time. I didn't think that I would ever become disabled this young. We all hear the line, and rightfully so, that we will all at some point in our lives become disabled through the ides of time or age or whatever it may be. But I guess we don't really talk about people who become disabled throughout their lifetime at a younger age. And I'm one of those people. And I'm not afraid or ashamed to say that I am a disabled woman. I'm a disabled member of this party and I'm a disabled public rep. And I feel that's a really unique position, and I'm going to take that responsibility really seriously, actually, to be able to stand up and provide support to people like Councillor Mina. And as he said, there are very few disabled public reps. And over the last while, I've really found myself spinning around because I don't know where to go and I don't know who to talk to. But I am going to keep going. I'm going to keep on stepping forward, and I'm going to be very proud of the fact that I am a disabled woman and I'm a member of this party, the party that supports disabled people and listens so closely to our disabled members. I thought I was pretty alive to the concerns of the disabled community, you know, ear to the ground, listening to disabled people's concerns. And it turns out that I had absolutely and utterly no idea. And I wish it didn't take me becoming disabled to have my eyes open to the reality that disabled people face. And I only have a mere glimpse of that reality right now. As Emma said, we disabled people are not a homogenous group. I have no idea what it's like for Councillor Mina to navigate life as a visually impaired public rep. I have no idea what it's like to navigate through the world with any variation of a disability. But there are people who have lived experience, and they are telling us what it is like to have a disability and what it is like to navigate this world. And it is beyond clear, from my perspective, that this green paper is horrific, is dismissive, it gives absolutely and utterly no regard for the lived reality of disabled people, and I think, quite frankly, it is abusive. I cannot see any way that our party, the party of fairness, equality, justice, could even fathom supporting this abomination of a paper. I'm going to briefly talk about care, and I was really struck. I was at an event with Shelley Gaynor a few weeks ago, and she really opened my mind or my eyes or my brain or my thoughts to the difference between, for example, care and personal assistance. And it was something that I hadn't really thought of, again, even though I thought I was down with all of this. I knew what was happening. I knew what personal assistance was. I've talked about personal assistance in the Seanad and the importance of that being funded. And she really just kind of, when she talked about it so eloquently, personal assistance, the right to just be able to live your life with that assistance. Because as Councillor Mina said, we are disabled by the society around us. It's not us that are the people who are disabled. It's society that has disabled us by putting barriers in our place, sometimes literally, where we have to clamber over things that are in our way or take a running high jump. My stick is almost like a pole vault at this point, trying to navigate my way around things, or because society puts barriers in our places because they say we can't do things, and we retreat from society. When I think about somewhere that I can't get to, I weigh up whether or not I'm even going to go there because I don't know how I'm going to navigate around that space. And then I sometimes decide it is actually easier for me not to go into that space because I don't know how to get through the mental load of getting around it, and I don't know how to physically get around it. And that is society's fault for putting those barriers in our way, for saying that we can't do something, that we can't go to college, we can't get these jobs, we can't do all of these things, instead of finding ways to facilitate and support us doing that. And that, when Shelley Gaynor was talking, is what personal assistance does. It allows that individual, that disabled person, have the right to make decisions and to live their lives and have someone assist them doing that. And she talked about care in a somewhat patriarchal sense, and there were some really difficult stories that I heard about people where carers came in, decided what they were going to wear. Carers came in, decided what food they were going to get. Carers came in and made all of these decisions on behalf of disabled people and separated them out from being whole individuals, complete human beings, perfectly capable of making our own decisions. And that is not to say that there isn't a role for care. And I think the referendum has really shown us the value we place on care both within and outside the home. I helped care for my dad when he was dying, and it was the greatest honour of my life to get to be there with him and help him and be a part of his life at the end of his life. And I would never take that away, and I would never wish actually that anyone should have to do that. But I was so proud to be his daughter and to be able to provide that care and keep him in our home. But we should have had more support to do that. We should have had more people there to be able to help us. And it wasn't right that it was between me and my mum and my sisters, night and day, doing what we could so that we could keep the light of our lives in our home. And we should have had more support from the state. And I hope that this referendum and the resounding result that the government got really shines light on that. And Emma's absolutely and utterly correct. And I said this to Minister O'Gorman. The government did not need that referendum to give care and to provide for care. The government did not need that referendum to ensure that every single disabled person has personal assistance, as many hours as they need, and more. We shouldn't be striving for the bottom level, adequate amounts. That word adequate can get in the absolute bleeding sea if that's the best that this government can even strive to do. Adequate amounts of care, adequate amounts of hours. Like, go take a running jump, actually. That is disgraceful. People need all of the support that they get. And when we're in such a wealthy country where we've got 64 billion and we've got ministers tap dancing around the place at how well they've managed this economy, and they can't even give adequate care, never mind decent amounts of care, never mind decent amounts of personal assistance hours. And I refuse to accept that this is the best that we can do for people. And the government did not need that referendum in order to provide the care, the supports, and the basic decent standard of living that disabled people, we deserve to have those basic standards of living. My dad deserved to have all of the care in the world at the end of his life. And he should have had all the care in the world. And it shouldn't be up to people to be the ones who do that. It shouldn't be up to our family members to dress us, to feed us, to shave us, to make sure we get our medicines, to make sure we get our tablets, to open up doors, lift us into places. That should be a part of the state in hand with our families and our friends and our people who look after us. And the government did not need that referendum to do that. And quite frankly, that government just drew a massive divide within the disabled community, within equality activists, amongst people who are carers themselves, and there was absolutely and utterly no need to do that. They could have put in the wording that our party leader works so hard to get for care within the home and outside the home, and they could have done literally anything to make lives better for people who are disabled and people who need care. And it is up to them over the next 12 months, because bloody heck, they're going to be stuck here for the next 12 months, I'd say. It's up to them to put their money where their mouth is and actually provide the care that disabled people need, that ill people need, that children need. I can't understand how they have left that go so far. But sorry, that was what Shelley Gaynor said, and I think it's important just to say here the difference between those two. I'm going to put something out here, and the party powers that me might be somewhat alarmed at me at proposing party policy on the huff, but look, I'm a bit dramatic and we may as well go for it. We understand in this country that the child benefit, there is a cost to having children, and we therefore have a child benefit. Everyone who has a child gets the child benefit. Doesn't matter how wealthy you are, doesn't matter how not wealthy you are, and there are other supports, and there should be other supports. It costs 12,000 a year, a minimum actually, I would say. 12,000 is what they're saying it costs to have a disability. I have a really, really good job, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have the means. And I'm on my knees with the cost it is costing me just to get into work if I can't access public transport. I have absolutely no concept how disabled people are expected to function in society with the cost that it comes to it. And then we have the audacity to be like, well, look, if you earn a couple of bob, quite frankly, that should do you. I believe that the same way that we recognise the child benefit, that there is a cost to having a child and there is a basic floor beneath which those children should not fall, I believe that there shouldn't be any means testing for the disability allowance, and that anyone who has a disability, they shouldn't be expected to fall above or below whatever is at that floor. We should ensure that there is a basic floor beneath which disabled people cannot fall. So I might hopefully come back to conference next year and propose such a motion that we treat disability allowance the way we treat child benefit and ensure that there is no floor beneath which disabled people can fall. So conference, I ask you that you support, because we are the party of justice, we are the party of fairness, we are the party of equality, and we are the party that stands or sometimes sits or sometimes hobbles along with whatever the variation of our movement may be, and we do that for disabled people, with disabled people. We listen to disabled people, and I ask you to please support both of these motions. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. So we've two motions now to vote on under the equality section. So the first motion is motion 80 in the name of Cabra and District Branch, the Ennis Branch and Labour Disability. So those in favour of motion 80 by show of delegate cards. Those against? Abstention? Motion 80 is carried, and then emergency motion in the name of Labour Disability. Those in favour of the emergency motion? Those against? Abstentions? And the emergency motion is carried as well. So that concludes the debate under the equality section. So we're going to move straight on, and thanks to our speakers for speaking to both the motions and to Annie Hoey for responding to the debate. So the next section we're going to deal with is under social protection. So we've motions 83, 84, 85 and 86 to deal with under this section. So motion 83 in the name of the Mullingar branch. I'll take a mover from the Mullingar branch to move motion 83. Fidelma. Thanks, Fidelma.
Chairperson, Cordia. Hi everyone. My name is Fidelma Bennett. I'm from the Longford Westmeath constituency, Mullingar branch, and local candidate in Mullingar LEA. So this motion here is that this conference shall call upon the government or any incoming government to commit to abolish the means test for carers allowance. The carers allowance is a weekly, means-tested social welfare payment to those who are caring for a person who needs support and assistance because of their age, disability, illness, including mental illness. To qualify, your income must be below a certain level, and the assessment takes in the income of your spouse and partner as well. You are expected to work a minimum of 35 hours a week over a 5 to 7 day period, which equates to the princely sum of, so the amount of the carers allowance, the maximum amount, is €248 a week. So if you're working 35 hours within that weekly period, you're talking of the princely sum of €7 per hour. Realistically, speaking to carers, many of them can work a 10 to 12 hour day, maybe a 70 to 80 hour week. So the princely sum even dwindles further in that scenario. So the money is not reflective of the care given and could actually be described as slave labour, with the state exploiting carers for far too long. Also, because it's means tested, up to 50% of those applying for the carers don't even receive the full amount, further dwindling the acknowledgement for the work that they do. So looking at that, it's not unreasonable to estimate that there's government savings in the region of 15 billion per annum. But we're not alone just talking about financial savings here. Just imagine if all carers decided to down tools in the morning and that they were doing no more. An already overburdened health system would deteriorate into total collapse. And this needs to be acknowledged by the government. What's needed is an acknowledgement, first of all, for the work done. A carer's allowance, not means tested, that reflects the level of the work. Wraparound services to support the carers as well as those receiving care, because we should also note that there are no state structures to provide any sort of emotional support to carers, despite the stressful nature of the work that they carry out.
Time, Speaker.
Thank you. Particularly those with Alzheimer's or dementia. The means test for carers is based on gross, not net income, and therefore doesn't take into consideration costs like mortgage, dependent children, college fees, medical costs, insurance costs, travel costs. It's beyond belief.
Time, Speaker.
Yeah, just one more point, if I may.
No, you're over the time, and I do have to try and facilitate as many people.
Okay.
We have
So I call for an immediate reform of the carers allowance and that the means test should be abolished. I commend this to conference.
Thanks, Fidelma. Is there a seconder for motion 83? Someone to formally second, Councillor Emma Cutlip. Thanks, Emma. Mover for motion 84 in the name of the Wexford Town branch. I'll come back to motion 84. Motion 85 then in the name of Sligo Leitrim, Nessa Cosgrave.
Hi everyone, thanks for staying around. We live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but the numbers of people living in poverty is steadily increasing. 1 out of 7 children are living in poverty every day. They're going to school hungry, they're going to school where they don't have enough school supplies, they're going to school because they're cold, and they're feeling left out, excluded straight away from their friends. 1 in 10 children are living in poverty that is prolonged, which means that it's gone on for longer than 3 years. Terms like, and words like homelessness, tents, food tokens, food or fuel have become everyday part of language that we can't just keep accepting this, that it's become so ingrained in the way we're thinking that it's nearly becoming normal. Years of neoliberalism policies that have been driven by the last consecutive governments means that, you know, that it's nearly become ingrained that poverty is nearly becoming acceptable. The rich are getting richer, the divide is getting bigger, I suppose the divide is getting bigger and the 1% is getting higher. But we are, I suppose, as a party, as a branch and in Sligo, that we're calling on the Labour Party to engage in a campaign to define and highlight the detrimental effect of poverty upon individuals and the state. Like, it's not just enough to fire a couple of quid onto every budget onto welfare payments. It's actually insulting, I think. We're further calling on the Labour Party to publish a poverty eradication manifesto outlining in one single document, and we can see that there have been strides made in round documents, you know, around immigration and about the north, to address how we actually as a party in government will address, combat and eradicate poverty and its causes. Thank you.
Thanks, Nessa. Is there a seconder for motion 85? Dermot Lacey to formally second motion 85. So motion 86 then, in the name of the Ballyfermot Drimna Joe DC branch. Patrick Dempsey.
Patrick Dempsey, Ballyfermot Drimna Joe DC branch. Comrades, it's shocking in the year 2024, in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, that I'm introducing a motion on tackling increasing deprivation in many parts of our country. In a state running budget surpluses, 200,000 people are living in serious disadvantage. Children are being denied a fair shot at a decent life from the get-go. And it's a failure of this Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Green government that inequality is rising. And a new Fine Gael Taoiseach won't change that either. The recent deprivation index shows what I, as a local representative and youth worker, see on the ground. Across the Ballyfermot Drimna local electoral area, we now have 10 more areas that are considered very disadvantaged than just 5 years ago. In a country awash with money, the Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil Green government is failing our disadvantaged areas and our most vulnerable. And it infuriates me that I see those families day in and day out struggle with the consequences of intergenerational poverty. From addiction, youth criminal offending, to the struggle for good, well-paying jobs, the government acts surprised when they're reaping what they sow. And I'm not coming at it from just as a politician or as a professional. I speak about it because I lived it. A recent article about this very issue has the picture of the flats that I grew up in Dublin South Central. I've seen what the struggle is like for my family, from putting food on the table to panicking about the next bill. I've seen family fall into addiction with poverty and trauma at its root. And the only thing that's changed since I've grown up is that for many parts of Ireland, they've become more unequal, more deprived, more traumatised. It's a stain on this government. That is why the Labour Party needs to redouble our efforts and pressure the government to tackle this issue head on, because we know as a party that an injury to one is the concern of all. Comrades, we must approach this issue with humility and honesty too, and I'm saying that as the child of a single parent during the crash. That's why we must be at the forefront of addressing intergenerational poverty and deprivation, making sure that lone parents receive a substantial increase in the support they can get to get decent, well-paying jobs with a welfare system that supports it. That's why we reaffirm our commitment to a strong, non-punitive social welfare system, that we see DESH Plus, which the government have failed to deliver on, that we invest in children and young people like never before, and that we bring back the Combat Poverty Agency that Fianna Fáil conveniently got rid of during the crash. that we push for the state to invest and support those workers and communities on the margins to be better places to flourish and to give everyone a fair shot at a decent life. And I'm asking conference to support this motion.
Thanks, Patrick. So we've motions 83, 85 and 86 on the conference floor to debate. So if there's any speakers who'd like to speak to any of the debate, I'd welcome them. So Mick Keegan.
Thanks, Chair. Mick Keegan, Labour Disability Cabinet Branch and polio survivor. It's a couple of things on the carer to abolish mean test is a great idea. At this present moment, when I'm not well, I'm completely bedridden. My wife has to take time off work in order to make sure I'm okay, and that could last 2 or 3 days when I overdo things, as I always do. And it would be great if we got that mean test, you know, that little bit of extra support as a carer to help out, you know. I know motion 83 on the fuel, that's very, very important. Somebody had, you know, haven't come across. Over the last couple of years, when the cost of heating your house has gone up, for me as a polio survivor, I suffer very bad with the cold. And sometimes I need to actually get into bed and put an electric blanket on to actually ease the pain and whatnot. And that's what it means by being fuel poverty, and that's what happens. I know a lady who had polio, and when the fuel got too high for her to pay, she had to stay in bed all day because she couldn't afford the cost of heating the home. And that's very important that we take that into consideration as well. The means test for carers should be abolished. My wife should be able to get some support when she cannot work because of my condition. And likewise, fuel as well. Most of the time, every Christmas, I'm at the Mansion House when the crib is there, collect the money for fuel poverty. That shouldn't be a charity. That should be given to the people who need it and whatnot. So look, at these motions, I have to agree with them, but I just want to emphasise the reasons why. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mick. Are there any other speakers who'd like to speak to any of the motions to the floor on social protection? No, so we'll move then to a vote on each of the motions, and just to welcome our party leader, Ivana Bacik, who's joined us. She's just over from RTE, I believe, where she was presenting on the This Week in Politics. So while we were debating the motion on RTE, Ivana was wearing her party colours in RTE, talking about everything that's gone over, taken place over party conference, and in response to her very ideological and her brilliant speech that she presented yesterday to conference. So thanks very much, Ivana. So just to come to the apologies, I'm jumping ahead of the spokesperson who's going to respond to the debate on social protection. So Senator Mark Wall is going to respond to the motions 83, 85 and 86 under our social protection
section. Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you very much. I won't hold conference much longer, but just to respond, very importantly, to respond on what has been said, and just to thank Senator Hoy for her passionate speech. I think it moved us all, as she always does with her contribution here today, because we are the party that care, and she is totally right on that. I just want to talk about the motion 83, which is the first motion from our excellent local election candidate, Fidelma Bennett, down in Mullingar. Only this week I'm a member of the Social Protection Committee, and I put the exact same question to the department this week in relation to getting rid of the means test for carers. Unsurprisingly, the reply was that it was going to cost too much. Delegates, when you're sitting in front of a family who have been refused carers allowance and you're trying to put together an appeal, it's only then that it hits home to you what they go through on a daily basis, the 24/7 care that they're providing for that loved one. And also, very important to say, is carers in this country, save this state, 20 billion euros a year. That's what they save, and yet the reply I got on Wednesday, sure, it would cost too much. It is simply not good enough. We need to get rid of the means test on carers allowance. We need to provide for carers. We need to allow those families from all walks of life who are caring for their loved ones 24/7 to receive what they should receive, and that is a justified payment of carers allowance each week. I just want to mention the Wexford motion in relation to fuel poverty. Again, at that Social Protection Committee, we've discussed that with agencies and indeed government departments over the last number of weeks. And it is a huge issue in this country. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And one of the biggest issues that I come across, and indeed us as Labour representatives come across, is that the means tests are done on gross, as has been mentioned here, rather than on net income. And a number of pensioners are losing out on fuel allowance. But not alone are they losing out on fuel allowance, they're also losing out on the retrofit scheme and the important warmer home scheme. So that's something the party will look at, and it needs to look at urgently, because we need to allow our pensioners the right to live in their own homes and ensure that they can live there in comfort as well. Nessa, as always, and indeed Patrick, have brought up some very important points for us in relation to poverty in this country. I know it was Deputy Nash earlier on said, and I'm going to repeat what he said, because as both speakers have said, we have a state of record surpluses. We have 900,000 of our citizens experiencing one form of poverty or another. That is simply not good enough. We need to implement what Patrick and indeed what Nessa have said. We need that manifesto in relation to poverty in this country. It is something that our public representatives come across day in, day out, dealing with community welfare officers, having to fill in form after form to ensure people get payments for fuel, people get payments for everything else that they need, because they're simply in that trap, that poverty trap in this country of, as I said, of record surplus. So a very important discussion we've had in relation to social protection. I'll bring them back to our spokesman, Sean Sherlock, to assure everybody in this that we will develop that policy as we always have done, and we will continue to fight for the most marginalised in our country. Thank you, delegates.
Thanks, Mark, for responding to the debate on social protection. So just to move then to the vote on each of the motions. So motion 83 in the name of the Mullingar branch. Those in favour of motion 83? Those against? Abstentions? Motion 83 is carried. Motion 84 fell. There was no mover for the motion. Motion 85 then in the name of Sligo Leitrim. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Motion 85 has carried. And then motion 86 in the name of Ballyfermot Drimnagh Joe DC branch. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? Motion 86 has carried. So thanks to all the speakers and to the I was going to say party spokesman, but to Mark Wall for responding to the debate on social protection. So now to the final section of Conference Comrades. We're dealing with the section under internal party affairs. So we've motions 87, 88 and 89 to move under this section. So motion 87 is in the name of Labour Disability. So we've Mick Keegan to move motion 87.
Thanks, Chair. And I'd like to thank Senator Anyhow for her speech there. Fantastic and well done. Thank you. What we're asking, Labour Party is stands for equality and things like that. But at this present moment, Labour headquarters is inaccessible for people with wheelchairs. Now, I probably could get into head office in my wheelchair or a ramp, but the likes of Connor wouldn't be able to, because his wheelchair is much bigger and too heavy to get in. We do have our meetings, every monthly meetings, but we have it in the Carmichael Centre, which is only a few doors down, because we can't access what's called now. We can't access Labour headquarters. Now, the Labour Party is an employer, and it does send out things for people. They're looking for people to be employed by the Labour Party. What it should have at the end of it is, if you've got a wheelchair, don't apply, because you can't get in, you know. So what we're asking is, that the executive board put a plan in. Now, it doesn't have to be in weeks and whatnot, but it has to be a plan that we see at the end of the day that the headquarters become accessible for everybody and nobody's left out. We'd like to use head office for what it's meant to be, you know, for everybody in the Labour Party to use. So all we're asking is for the exec board to come out with a plan and let us, so we can sit down and work out the best way of getting the place accessible. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. Is there a seconder for motion 87? Eddie McGuinness, formerly second. So motion 88 then, in the name of Labour LGBTQI+.
Bear with me a moment. Good afternoon, comrades. The Labour Party has always been at the forefront of progressive change in this country. We've been leaders on social issues throughout our entire history as a party. From the decriminalisation of homosexuality to the legalisation of contraception to campaigning on divorce. Our activists have always been at the forefront of political change, and our own party leader, who's here tonight, as we all well know, was almost arrested for campaigning on women's right to abortion. We need to continue that work. And I think that I represent a new era in our fight for progressive change and a progressive future in this country. My name is Joshua Lull. I am a candidate in the local elections in 2024, running in the Clondalkin local area. And I am the first non-binary person to ever run for election in Ireland. Thank you. I've been going around for a while saying I think that I'm the first non-binary person, or correct me if I'm wrong, but no one has yet to put themselves forward and correct me. So I am going with it now that I am the first non-binary person to run for election in Ireland. And that's quite a weight to hold on your shoulders. I represent a reasonably significant portion of our community who are not of our society who are not represented in politics in Ireland. A significant portion of the LGBT community, and particularly of younger people. Non-binary people in Ireland, transgender people in Ireland. Myself and Saoirse Mackin from the Social Democrats are two of the only people running for, the only transgender people running for local elections, and who have ever run for local elections in Ireland. So this is something very new, and this is something that we need to lead on as a party, and I hope to do that in my candidacy, and in my work in the party. This motion that we have put forward in Labour LGBT is essential to doing that. Because language is very important when it comes to transgender issues, and the way that we treat transgender people is very important. This motion calls on the party executive to do research into how we can be more inclusive of non-binary people in our events, in our spaces, and in the language of the party constitution. Under the current constitution, for example, we have male and female panels for the executive board, and in many other elections. Some of the language in our constitution uses gendered pronouns, or requires that the chair of an organisation be of the opposite gender to the co-chair, for example. I'm very lucky in Labour Youth that we have updated our constitution to say that the co-chair has to be, or the vice chair in my case, has to be another gender to the current chair. So I am the vice chair of Labour Youth, and I'm able to do that as a non-binary person thanks to the language and the careful wording of our new constitution that has given me the power to do that. I really urge you to support this motion. It's going to make us a progressive party, a leader in progressive change, and make people like me feel more included in the party. And I hope that the next time the local elections run around, I hope that I will be a councillor contesting again, but I also hope that there will be other non-binary candidates and transgender candidates fighting alongside me to win seats for Labour and to fight for a progressive country. Thank you.
Great, and well done, Josh, and thanks very much for your contribution. So to second the motion, James Kearney.
Thank you, Chair Lisa, and thank you, Joshua, for your speech. So James Carney, Killiney Shankill, but presenting in my role as the co-chairperson for Labour LGBTQ+. So our comrade Ian McGahan mentioned yesterday that 20 years ago, Labour LGBT, it was known then, was founded. We were the first party to do so because of our strong history in fighting for LGBTQ+ rights. We have campaigned strongly, we have fought the fight, we have walked the walk on that issue, and this is another step forward in that issue. Currently, as things stand in terms of what the language for who can sit on executive boards and things like that, it is people who identify for the male panel as male, people who identify as female for the female panel. What we are simply looking to do is to update that further and to allow for more inclusivity and explore what that inclusivity would look like in this case. What I wanted to also say, though, is for Joshua to come up here and declare themselves as the first non-binary candidate to run for our party and to receive a rapturous applause, I think that speaks fantastically of the pride that we have in this party, of our diversity and progressive values. So thank you all very much. I urge you to support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, James, and well said. So the next motion we're dealing with is motion 89 in the name of Central Council before we open it up for common debate then on those three motions. So Valerie McDermott then to move motion 89.
Comrades, Valerie McDermott, Unevin, Killiney Shankill branch, a member of the Executive Board, and also from proposing this motion on behalf of Central Council. First of all, thanks very much for waiting for the very last motion in conference. I appreciate you all still being here and so enthusiastic. Comrades, I love conference. I've been coming to conference since 1984. My first conference, the late Flora Mahoney drove me to the conference, and I actually canvassed for the organisation committee for an up-and-coming new member of the party who went on to better things. Niamh Brannock went on to be a councillor, TD, and minister in her first day in government. Since 1984, I've been at nearly every conference. Apart from when I had small kids, I don't think I've missed a conference. The first thing I do when I hear conferences on, I book the venue. I'm there. I love conference. It's extremely important. The motions at every conference dictate our policy. We get to meet our comrades on a regular basis and have a great opportunity to discuss with them. It's great for the media, for the party, gives us good candidature exposure, and of course we have the leader's speech and all that ensues as a result of that. However, conference is costing us an awful lot of money every year. So we're proposing that instead of having an annual conference, we go to a conference every 2 years, with the year that there isn't a conference, that we hold a one-day event which involves all of head office and all of the delegates. But it wouldn't be a full voting conference like we have every year at the moment. The reasons I'm proposing this on behalf of the Executive and Central Council is, first of all, the cost of it. It is costing up to 20% of our annual budget to put on this wonderful two-day conference. It's been fantastic, and I want to congratulate everybody who has, Billy and all her team in head office who've done a fantastic job. But the time that head office put in, it has been fantastic, but the time that head office put into organising this conference, it takes them weeks and weeks of organisation to arrange this conference. We're a small team in they're a small team in head office now, and really at this stage, I'm sure there are other things that they would prefer to be doing than organising conference on an annual basis the way they do. Because we have a smaller staff now. The third reason that I'm proposing this is because we have when you have a voting conference every year, it means that we have to elect delegates, or we have to elect members for the executive board. We had a big churn of board members last year, and we were only elected in March, and by June we're talking about next year's conference again. I think by giving board members at least a 2-year stint, it gives people a chance to bed down, get to work, and to do best on behalf of the party members. So for that reason, I would urge you to adopt motion 89. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Valerie. So I have Mike O'Connor to second the motion. Joanna? Okay, so I need someone to second motion 89. Do you want to speak to... Yeah, great. Yeah, no problem. So if I'll take a formal seconder then for motion 89 to facilitate then just the request to speak to the common debate. So Councillor Dermot Lacey to formally second motion 89. So we have a number of people who are indicating that they want to speak on there's 3 motions there that we're dealing with, motion 87, 88 and 89. So the first person who I saw indicating is Conall O'Boyle, who's already on his feet, and then I'll take Joanna next. So if you can just indicate what motion you're speaking to as well.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair. Conall O'Boyle, Carroll Kilkenny. I wish to speak to motion 89, but just before that, I just want to say thanks for all the support in buying this. It's going to go a long way to funding candidates, James and Josh, and many others are very grateful for the support that you've shown in that fundraiser this week. So thanks very much. No, I'm going to speak in favour of this motion. I think the point that Valerie just made there on the longer term for the executive board, I think is a good thing. That's actually what we did in Labour Youth when we wrote our new constitution. So we're leading the change in the party again, you know. I think, yeah, conference costs money, and I think that the best way now that we can sort of use our resources is by following what's written out here in this motion, you know, because times are changing, times are moving on, and we need to be you know, more conscious of that, I think. So I would urge you to vote in favour of the motion. Thanks.
Thanks, Conall. So the next speaker then looking to speak was Councillor Joanna Tuffy.
So I'm speaking on motion 89 and I oppose the motion. Democracy counts money. Isn't that something the Labour Party stands for and repeats often? Democracy costs money. This is the democratic forum for the Labour Party members to make Labour policy. Okay, we've been here before. This is history repeating itself. Our conference was changed to every 2 years and then we changed back to every 1 year. Personally, I cannot understand why we would think it is better for the party to have a conference every 2 years instead of 1. You know, this is our forum. This is the members' forum. It's not for the PLP to decide everything about policy. This is where policy is made for the party. You know, so I just can't understand it. I think the party benefits from having a conference every year. We're in the media. We have a profile. It's part of our values about democracy. And just to say something positive, we had a motion at last year's conference. My dad proposed it, Eamon Tuffy, and that was basically that each year that the party would report at conference on the motions that were passed at the previous year's conference. And I want to commend the party, it implemented our motion. So just welcome that. But I oppose this motion.
Thanks, Joanna. Any other speakers? Jerry Kerr is looking to speak. And then I'll take Brendan Ryan after Jerry.
Okay. Comrades, just like the last speaker there, I'm pleading with you, please oppose. I think it's 89. I thought from the preliminary agenda that it was dropped anyway because at Central Council there was a certain amount of pushback to it. I'm around long enough, 30 years, to know we had at one stage got 2-year conferences under Dick Spring, and you, the members, decided in your wisdom it wasn't working. And you went back and we changed it back to 1 year. Now, I think it's possible, and just to counter some of the arguments there, I am worried about the internal democracy of the party. I've already spoken to that on a previous motion. And I think our governance and our internal democracy need to be strengthened. It's not a good sign if people aren't changed each year, if they're not challenged, if they just fall into, oh, we'll be there for 2 years. No, you are the people with the choice to decide that. We don't need all this razzmatazz of huge big halls that are half filled. We can have smaller ones. We don't need huge big glossy brochures. We can send out emails. There's a way of doing it cheaper, and there's a way of doing it effectively, but making sure that your voice is heard. From my 30 years, I am afraid that we're getting less and less real debates, and we're just, yes, 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 sticking up our hands all the time. Let's bring back real democracy into the party, and let's make sure we're not reduced to every 2 years. Think of it, in the space of a government, we'd only be able to meet twice to say, look, you're doing wrong there. what you did in the medical cards is wrong, what you did here is wrong. We wouldn't be able to, if 550,000 was spent on a huge big apartment block that we were renting after selling our own premises, we wouldn't be able to stand up and say, oi, you shouldn't be spending 550 grand renting. You've lost the run of yourselves. We need ordinary members like you to be able to stand up, to have the power to stand up. Otherwise, our internal democracy and governance is gone. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. So I'm going to take Mike O'Connor next, then followed by Brendan Ryan. So I'll take Mike next.
Michael Connor, Clondalkin Racool Branch, Chair Conference. I'm speaking in favour of Motion 89. Prior to I retiring, I was an employee of a telecoms company, and I was also an activist in the Communications Workers Union. I was a branch secretary, was elected to the National Executive over many years, and I was eventually elected president of the union. So you might ask, why am I informing you of this? The reason is that during this period, the CWU members agreed to move the holding of its national conference from an annual basis to a biennial basis. It was done for various reasons, such as giving members elected at conference the greater chance and opportunity to get to know their roles and to make a difference. Financial reasons also come into play. In the intervening year, what's called the Spring Conference takes place in order to agree and ratify financial reports and so forth, as well as dealing with any pressing issues that need to be dealt with. From a member's perspective, branch secretary's perspective, and the president's perspective, the change from annual to biennial conference has worked well, and it has not impacted the operation of the union, and most importantly, the provision of services to members that they demand and deserve. Of course, it's always open to members of that union, as it is to members of the Labour Party delegates, to change it back to an annual conference if they so wish, by way of a motion to biennial conference. I think there's a point being missed here, where we are going to have a conference every year. It's just that the biennial one will be a full conference. We will still get the attention in the intervening year, as the union I was a member of does. So I would ask you to support this motion. And Lisa, I'd like to congratulate you on how you have chaired this conference. You've done a really, really good job. And I wish you well in your incoming term, be that 1 year or 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. So I had Brendan Ryan next, and then I'll take Alison. So Councillor Brendan Ryan.
Councillor Brendan Ryan, Scottish Branch, Dublin, Fingal. I'm here to spontaneously get up and oppose this motion. Brian McDonough said he assumed I was coming up to do so, so he followed me up to support me. But look, I think Valerie, in her opening comments, made the case for keeping the status quo, not for changing it. She made a very strong case. The other thing I'd like to make here is, it's unfortunate that this is the last motion of this conference on a Sunday afternoon when most of the members are not here. I think that's not acceptable. But I'm a long time in the party as well. I love conference. I've hardly missed any conference since I joined the party back in the 70s. The conference is the most important event in the calendar of this party, in my view. I go home from the conference every year, and my batteries are recharged. I enjoy the company of the comrades. I'm energised. I hear all of the debates, the new thinking, to meet all the new comrades, the new young people that we've seen this weekend. We shouldn't change this. So when I go home, my battery's recharged. I'm ready to go on and go at any door and, you know, for the next 6 or 8 weeks, I'm up there and recharged. So I'd ask you to reject this motion. I know it was recommended by Central Council, and I'm assuming that was discussed by all of the constituencies, and therefore there's a strong case for it. But, you know, I think we should keep what we have. If we do change it, I've no doubt that in a couple of years' time, we'll be coming back to change it back. And where we are in terms of the polls, I think this gives a very bad sign. I think it's a sign that we're retreating. And I don't like to retreat in any way as a member of this great party. Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. So the next person I had looking to speak was Alison O'Donoghue. And then I'll take Breen and then Fiona, Lorna.
Hi folks, I'll keep it short. I'm in favour of this motion for a couple of reasons. One is the cost to actually attend conference. If this had been in Cork in a hotel, I wouldn't have been able to attend this year. It's as simple as that. I just don't have the money. And I'm conscious that there's an awful lot of people who are not here because they were here yesterday, but they didn't stay overnight because they couldn't afford it either. So there's a cost to attending, and, you know, that's something that we need to take into consideration. In the next 12 months, we're going to have our local elections, our European elections, most likely a general election, and as activists, we will need to be active out there on the doors in our local constituencies, out trying to win those elections, and that's where our focus needs to be in the next 12 months. If we change this, we can change it back if we need to. But if we are fighting elections, we need to make sure that any money that this party has needs to go into winning those seats back. And we need to be out there winning seats. We all have great crack at the bar, but you know what? We know we're going to vote for each other, but we need to be out talking to other people, getting them to vote for us as well. With the technology that's now available, we can have Zoom calls, we can have emails, we can have the whiteboards, we can have the virtual whiteboards in order to fully flesh out policies. So moving this to biennial conference does give us time to actually properly and fully research proposals. And I know that you know, there's a lot of great ideas, but we're always seem to be a bit of a rush about them. But to actually properly put them to people, properly consult within our party outside of conference, so that when we come to conference, we've got ideas fully fleshed out, so that we can have proposals that are winnable for elections. Anyway,
thanks, Alison. Councillor Breen McDonagh is looking to speak next.
My good friend and colleague, Councillor Brendan Ryan there, may have misheard me, but sure, he as usual, he knew that damn well, because I saw him coming up and I said, I need to provide balance, because I'm pretty sure I'll end up on the other side of the motion to this. Again, I'm up spontaneously. I hadn't thought about this till we were sitting down there, and I love annual conference. I love the motions, and I've been very energised, and I thought this was a really focused conference. It was great there. There were some key debates, particularly ones around Northern Ireland and some other pieces there. In terms of all the arguments, I think Alison has made most of the case that I wanted to make, particularly around the focus, and this is something that I know that Brendan will agree, because another thing that Brendan loves, probably even more than conference, is winning elections. He's won enough elections, and he's helped the rest of us learn how to win elections. And I think that it is useful for us to be flexible. And I can happily see myself voting in 2 years or 3 years to come back to an annual. It's not a position on a long-term or even a medium-term basis. And if it doesn't work, I'll happily vote backwards. But I think at the moment, for the right time, I think this has been done for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. I think this is being done because it is the best way that we can try and get the best result for the country by bringing the Labour Party where we need to be. But I respectfully disagree and understand with the, you know, it could easily be the other way either. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. So next I had Councillor Fiona Connolly.
Hello, conference, and thank you for the time for speaking. I just would like to say that I'm a relatively new member to the Labour Party, a long-time supporter and fan, but a new member. And last year when I went to conference, it really gave me a platform to meet other delegates and make connections in real life, and I really appreciate that, and I feel like there's a huge value on that. So possibly the opposite to the opening speaker, I'm not a long-time member, I haven't been going for that many years, but it's a huge value in my experience of conference last year and conference this year. So even when we're busy, I think coming together and sharing ideas and networking is just priceless, maybe. So thank you. So I'd advocate against the motion.
Thanks, Fiona. And then the last person looking to speak on this debate in relation to internal party affairs is Lorna Fitzpatrick.
Germagat, also hadn't really planned on speaking on this one, so apologies. But absolutely agree with what has been said actually by the last speaker as well, in terms of last year was my first conference. This is my second conference. I didn't know that many people when I walked into the room last year, but also got to meet loads of wonderful people, have really important discussions around policy and positions that our party takes. But I actually support this motion, because what this motion allows is for us to still do that every year. It's not taking away it's not taking away conference every year. It's still allowing for us to have one conference or policy meeting annually where we can come together to have those discussions, to meet those people, to network, to generate ideas, and to decide and take that back, re-energise, networked, and have those great ideas back in our own communities and in our own constituencies right across the country. So this motion does allow for us to have that annual meeting, to have that conference or policy discussion, but without necessarily the huge cost associated with hosting a full voting conference. I'm also was elected to executive board last year at my first conference, and I can tell you, I would class myself as being fairly clued in, but it can take an awful lot of time just to figure out the full ins and outs of how the executive board works, and to be able to make sure that you're representing the party correctly on that executive board. And so by allowing that 2-year time frame for people to be able to learn the ropes, embed, and really have a meaningful impact at the executive board, I think is another reason why I'm asking for you to support this motion. Yeah, I think they were my main points. I probably had lots more, but I would ask that you support this. And if it's not working, as has been said, we can absolutely come back and change it. And I would gladly stand on this stage at my 3rd or 4th conference and ask for us to change this and move back to an annual. But for the moment, I think we need to give this a go.
Thanks, Lorna. And then the final speaker before I come back to Annie to respond to the debate is Ellen O'Sullivan.
Hi, Ellen O'Sullivan, Dublin South Central and Organisation Committee. I won't keep you long, not least because I can see Rhonda and Ivana entertaining my baby down there. I just really want to add my support to this motion. I think the Labour Party is, to my mind, one of the parties in the country that gives the most voice to its members and that cares about what the members say the most. This motion is not at all trying to stymie the voice of the members. It's just conference is becoming, I know people have been saying it's expensive, it's a lot of money. Obviously everything in life costs money. The party spends money on things. When people are saying expensive, they're saying cripplingly, unsustainably expensive. It's not just, we understand, Billy understands that things cost money, but it is becoming unsustainable, and I think exploring a different way to get the members' voices, to get people together, to get people engaged, while still having a voting conference every 2 years is the only way forward. If we want people to be able to attend and to be able to give their best to conference, as Alison said, it's quite a crippling expense to attend conference sometimes. If we want conference to be the best we can be, I think this is the only option. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. So I'm going to ask Senator Annie Hoey to come up and to respond to the debate under internal party affairs.
I suppose it's very appropriate this time to say guys, gals and non-binary pals, given what... See, now you know I've always been doing it. It's for inclusivity and what the party stands for. I'm just going to run through these motions one by one. I think it's a no-brainer, really, around the non-binary to have our non-binary members accounted for and recognised within our party structures, because as we more than ever now know, they do exist and they should be counted for. So I really want to thank Joshua for speaking on this motion, and I really want to thank Joshua actually for running for our party of equality. Joshua's become a really great friend of mine, and I'm really excited to see that vital representation and that voice, hopefully, on the council at the representative table. In terms of the accessibility for head office, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I think you all who were here in the room when I spoke earlier on around disability and accessibility, if we've learned anything from this past year, the past few weeks, and from this conference, is that disabled people need to be able to get into our spaces, to be heard in our spaces. So, of course, it's a no-brainer that we're going to try and ensure that our head office is fully accessible in whatever way that has to be. On the last motion, motion 89, I'm just going to read out a piece in this. It says, in a calendar year in which a party conference is not held, the party should hold at least one conference or other policy meeting in which all head office and constituent members are entitled to attend. So I'm not even... maybe I'm not reading it right. This is we still have the option of having conference or some form of a meeting or some form of policy forum every year if we want to. We're very lucky that we also have Executive Board and Central Council, which meet quite regularly, which do all sorts of things around policy decision making on behalf of constituencies and those that we elected them to do that. So my understanding is that the option is still there. That there will be some forum. I feel, we still have to do things like our TV time. We still have to do lots of things on an annual basis. So it would strike me as I can't imagine we would have a situation where there is not going to be some form of a gathering every year, whether that's conference proper, which is our big 2-day affair where we do all of our debates and all of our things and everyone travels around the place and we have the whole shenanigans, or a 1-day affair which facilitates things like our TV time, policy discussion. I'm sure the details of this have to be worked out, but I just think it's important that we read what the motion actually says, and that is, in a calendar year in which a party conference is not held, the party shall hold at least one conference or other policy meeting which all head office and constituency members are entitled to attend. So I feel that perhaps might, the wording of this is quite specific. I hope that might allay some people's fears that we're not going to be able to gather together, that we're not going to be able to discuss policy. This is a democratic party. We have lots of different ways and forms within which we can discuss things, debate things. All of our, certainly PLP members, councillors can be contacted around policy issues, and my understanding from that is that we would have our conference proper, big, full and enthusiastic at least every 2 years, and that in the intervening year there will be some form of something, whether it be a conference because it's deemed necessary or a gathering or a policy meeting that allows all party members to attend and have their voices heard on policy issues and the formation of the policy for our party.
No. So we've had the opportunity for everyone. I've allowed everyone who's indicated that they wanted to speak on any of the motions to speak. So out of respect to Annie, who has been asked to come up and speak to respond to the internal affairs, I would just ask that she be allowed to speak and finish the points that she was making. So thanks to Annie for responding to the debate on internal party affairs dealing with motions 87, 88 and 89. So that now brings us to, we've facilitated everyone who's wanted to speak to the motions. Annie has responded to the debate, and now we're moving to the vote on each of the motions. So, point of order. Would you mind just coming up to the microphone, Tony, if you don't mind? Just. And just while Tony is making his way up to make the point of order, John O'Brien from Standing Orders might come on standby just to assist with the point that Tony's going to put forward.
No, just while you were discussing it there, I just had a flick through the Constitution, and I expected, and I'm glad to see that it says that a 2/3 majority is required to amend the Constitution. And I was going to speak against it, but I thought there was enough of an argument made. I'm actually a bit disappointed. When we had this discussion before, and when this was attempted before, Labour Youth were the people that actually opposed the change, because they were very anxious to ensure that we have a democratic forum every year. And but anyway, that's things move on. I'm a little bit concerned that we're on a decline. I also remember, oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Point of order made. Sorry.
I've taken the point of order, Tony, which you've clarified what the constitutional position is in terms of the 2/3 majority required then in terms of a vote to the change of the constitution. So thanks, Tony, for coming up and pointing out the point of order just ahead of the vote. So on the basis of, you've confirmed that. John O'Brien, is John present as well from standing orders? So we'll just while John, just because obviously we want to get that clarification as well, but Tony, you outlined that you looked at the Constitution there during the debate, and that is outlined within the... Yeah, okay, so I'll ask John O'Brien.
It's normally the case anyway.
Yeah. Or is Jerry Ash available? From standing orders, yeah. No, they're in a room watching the debate on the TV, so we just want to get them to come up because I'm conscious they're up on the 3rd floor. And it's just to give them the opportunity to come down to the conference floor just to deal with the point of order.
16.4. It says, notwithstanding the foregoing sections. It's Article 16.4, and it says, notwithstanding the foregoing sections, this article may be amended only by resolution of the party conference passed with the support of not less than 2/3 of the delegates.
Okay. So just an update from standing orders. They are looking at this just for us at the minute, and we're just looking at Article 16 here as well.
It just refers to Article 16, I think.
Is conference happy for me to put motion 87 and 88 while we get confirmation on motion 89 just in the interim? Because Rob O'Donoghue is also on standby to sing the red flag. So I don't want to eat into Rob's important time either. So motion 87, which was in the name of Labour Disability. Can I put that motion to the floor, looking for those indicating in favour of motion 87? Those against motion 87? Abstentions? Okay, so motion 87 has been carried. And then motion 88 then in the name of Labour LGBTQI+. Those in favour of motion 88? Those against? Abstentions? Great, so motion 88 has been carried, and then we're just looking at the detail then on motion 89. John O'Brien is making his way down, is he? I saw Fionnuala Richardson present, not to put somebody under pressure, but since they've gone into retirement, is Fionnuala, no, she was previously chair of standing orders. For John, great, thanks Fionnuala. Great, thanks, Fionnuala. Is,
Because it may affect the nature of the vote. That's we would. It's just easier to do it. We can wait. Either way.
Member said no. Member said no, we don't need to. Member said you know, it's really clear. Anyway, we'll wait for standing orders. They make them read it, not me. Yeah, that's fine. It wouldn't be conference without a standing orders, right?
Hold on a second, there are a few calls to make. Hang on. How will that Dubs match and get in here? they're looking to spend your election money. Sorry. They're European money. Sorry, I'm joking. I give a point there.
No, he's actually not. Yeah, better representation the audience rather than. Yeah, that's actually a fair point.
so we're just waiting for standing orders to give us an update on it. They're just looking at the Constitution in relation to it. And then in the interim, Dermot Lacey has gotten the assistance of a number of tellers then just to prepare in counting the vote on motion 89. Just shows.
It is open to interpretation. That's the only.
Here comes John.
John's on the way.
He's just coming up the stairs there. So we've John O'Brien who's the chair of Standing Orders now, is just going to give us an update in terms of the point of order that Tony has raised. So John's just making his way up here. I bet you're glad you took on the role of chairperson of Standing Orders now.
I catch my breath from running up and down the stairs first. Anyway, sorry conference, but we're up at the top of the house, so... Anyway, the fact of the matter is, in answer to the question, yes, on page 21 of the Constitution, Article 16, I should say, point 4, notwithstanding the foregoing sections, this article may be amended only by resolution of the party conference passed with the support of not less than 2/3 of the delegates.
This article. Rather than the.
This is what I was. The interpretation.
I think.
And amendment of this Constitution.
Yeah, but the Article 2:16 to this Constitution may be amended only by resolution. I mean, it's a matter of standing orders.
Okay, that's the Article 16 itself.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Oh, maybe check it. I just want to be clear.
asking, is Finola there by any chance? To identify? No, she's not.
Fionnuala.
Okay. Okay, we'll have to take it on the view that on rereading on that. Okay, there's the Article 16, which is the interpretation and amendment of the Constitution. And forgive me, this is a new job for me. The piece that I just read relates to the resolution the party conference passed with the support of not less than 2/3 refers to the article, which is what I read from. However, part 2 of that is the Constitution may be amended only by resolution of the party conference expressly moved for that purpose, a resolution not expressly moved for that purpose and which is inconsistent with the Constitution shall have no effect. So it would suggest that the amendment to the article requires 2/3, whereas an amendment to the Constitution itself does not have the same requirement.
Article 16.
So I'll take Joanna.
Article
I'll ask you
16,
just to come
which
up
is
to
the
make the point of
interpretation
order,
and
so-
the amendment of the Constitution.
Apologies, it's just so you can speak to the microphone so everyone can hear the point of order you want to make.
It doesn't specify simple majority in there, does it?
I think it's just better to say 2/3. It's points of order that I'm dealing with. So Joanna's actually on her way up to make a point of order in relation to the standing orders report that was provided.
Sorry about this, but in the 16.4, which was just read, it says notwithstanding the foregoing. So,
This article refers to this article.
well, I mean, I have to say, first of all, the Central Council, you know, the party leadership allowed a motion to come to conference about amending our constitution, and it isn't really sure, you know, of the rules, which I'm still unsure about myself. You know, so I'm a bit worried about a ruling by the party on this unless they actually know what they're talking about.
So I think with respect, standing orders give their time on a voluntary basis, and that has to be respected by conference. They're trying to give an interpretation, and they're reading the Constitution in real time.
I never criticised standing orders. I never criticised the Standing Orders Committee.
And we are all comrades. We're just trying to clarify the detail around whether it's a 2/3 majority or whether it's by a majority, whether that's 50% plus one. So we're just trying to get clarification on that piece. And I appreciate that standing orders are trying to get that information. Fionnuala, could you come up to the microphone? So I have two people making their way to the microphone. So Jerry Kerr, then followed by Fionnuala Richardson. So Jerry first.
Okay, you're coming to the rostrum, okay? Okay?
Thank you very much.
I'll just be behind you, Gloria.
Mary, you might also be the third speaker, if you don't mind, just so everyone can hear the point that you're making in relation to that. So, Jerry, work away.
Thank you, Lisa. Sorry, I can't hear you very well. And when I was coming up through the stage, I couldn't hear the last speaker, Joanne Tuffy, so I have to apologise for that. No, I would make the point the same as you've made. In my understanding, usually, if you want to change the Constitution, you have to actually put the wording that you wish to replace the Constitution, the present wording, you have to actually quote what you want put in. Now, that's the first point. But the second point is, to avoid controversy, I think it is quite, and to avoid publicity, I would think it isn't right for the very last motion in conference to be such a momentous constitutional change motion.
So I'm not opening back up debate to the motion, respectfully. It's point of order or any clarification that is being sought.
So on a point of order, I would ask that it be referred back. Thanks, Lisa.
So the next person who's looking to make a point was Mary. Or Fionnuala, were you looking to?
Okay. I'm quite happy on standing orders to come to the following situation. The amendment, the article we're discussing is Article 15. Article 15 covers two issues. It says this Constitution may be amended. So any part of the Constitution can be amended under Section 2, Article 16, Section 2. And therefore, the conference and the rules around conference is covered within the Constitution. So the Constitution may be amended only by a resolution of the party conference expressly moved for that purpose. A resolution not expressly moved for that purpose and which is inconsistent will have no effect. So, therefore, the first line of that, Constitution may be amended only by a resolution of the party conference expressly moved for that purpose. There is no requirement for a two-thirds majority in that instance. The second part is, number 4, requires an amendment to Article 16. And Article 16 to be amended requires two-thirds majority. Sorry for the delay with it, but that's very clear in my view. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So thanks, John, for giving your reading of standing orders and for responding to the debate so quickly as well, John, because that also has to be respected. It's John's first time in the role of chairperson of standing orders, so thanks, John, for responding. Mary.
Thank you very much. Mary Freehill is my name. I'm a member of the Rathmines, Rathgower and Harold's Cross branch. And I just think there's too much confusion here today, plus the fact that we have a very small number of the members who attended conference. It's a serious, no it's not, that legally speaking, but we're talking about the party, we're talking about the will of the party, and quite... Please don't interrupt me. Will you let me finish? If you're so
Mary,
fond of
Mary,
free speech,
I'm
will you
only,
let me finish
Mary,
my
respectfully,
what I've
I'm
got
only
to say?
looking to deal
Quite
with points of
frankly,
orders
it would make much
or
more
questions.
sense if we deferred it, I think, to next conference.
Okay.
We cannot afford to play around with our constitution this way, with such confusion.
Mary, in the same way that I said to Jerry that I'm not reopening the debate, I take the point of order that you've made, which is looking for the motion to be deferred back. So thanks, Mary, for your suggestion. So there's two positions that we're in relation to motion 89. So John has given the reading in relation to standing orders view in terms of what the Constitution outlines in terms of the vote taking place on motion 89. The other suggestion there from Mary, which is to refer back the motion, motion 89. So there's two options there for us. We can proceed with a vote, or the alternative option is to refer the motion back. So in the first instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a vote to conference on referring the motion back. So whether conference wants to accept referring the motion back, if conference rejects the referral back, then we'll take a vote of the motion itself. Josh, I do want to, I'm going to call the points of order, if that's okay, because we seem to have a confirmation there that we can take a vote on whether we're going to refer back, and then we're going to move to a vote. Otherwise, we are reopening the debate in terms of the motion that we've discussed. Okay, John. This is the final point of order.
Just in terms of, I think we should go ahead with this vote because if you look at the first part of that section, there's a very important thing which it says that the executive board is the body which interprets this constitution. We have a large part of the executive board here on the panel and in the room, and I think it's very clear that all of those are in agreement with standing orders as to how standing orders have interpreted this. Standing orders have given us interpretation of this article, and also in my own reading of the article, I think it's pretty clear that it does not require a two-thirds majority for this motion to pass. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to now take a vote on referring the motion back. So just to be clear, so if it's accepted to refer the motion back, then it's going to be referred back to be dealt with again. If this vote then is rejected, we'll move then to a vote on the motion as it is, motion 89, because we have gotten the interpretation from John O'Brien. I'm not taking any more speakers in relation to it. So we have gotten an interpretation from the Chair of Standing Orders in terms of the piece around the majority of the vote in terms of the motion to the conference floor, which is that it only needs to be a simple majority in relation to the vote. So We've Dermot Lacey, who's our chief teller, who's there to assist in counting the votes. So the motion then to refer the motion back, to refer motion 89 back. Those in favour of that motion? It's, and apologies, thanks Connell for the confirmation, it's delegate cards, by show of delegate cards. Delegate cards only being counted.
If you keep your delegate cards held, President Hill.
Thanks. And then those against referring the motion back?
Again, if you keep your delegate cards held, please.
James. James. Did you count the stage votes?
Huh?
Did you count the stage cards?
I wasn't responsible for the stage votes. Ask Dermot. Dermot, have you counted the stage votes? Great.
Need we ask? Need we ask?
I'll take
I was
abstentions as
responsible
well.
for this section.
So any, thanks comrade, so any abstentions then to referring the motion back? No, none.
Against referral back.
Can you just give me the numbers again, Dermot? So Dermot has confirmed that it was 32 votes not to refer the motion back and 26 to refer the motion back. So that brings us then to a vote on the motion itself, because the proposal to refer the motion back has been defeated by 32 to 26. So that now moves us into a vote on motion 89 itself. And Standing Orders has given a clear interpretation as to the reading of the Constitution, in that it's a simple majority on the vote. So at this point then, I'm moving now to vote on motion 89 in the name of Central Council. Those in favour of motion 89. So Dermot, where's Dermot?
Speaking for
You okay? Okay, thank you. Those against the motion? And I'll take... Okay, and can I take abstentions as well? And just abstentions then, anyone who wants to abstain from the motion? Okay, so no abstentions. So Dermot has outlined that the vote in favour of motion 89 was 38 in favour to 22 against the motion. So that means then motion 89 was carried. And if there's anyone who is quick at maths, you can, I don't know what percentage that is from one to the other. But in any way, the motion has been carried. Motion 89 has been carried by conference. So on that basis, Rob O'Donoghue, if there is ever a moment for us all to stand together to sing the red flag, this is the moment for Rob to come up and to inspire us all. But it was great. Thanks everyone for giving your time, for staying till the end, for all the contributions, for everything that everyone has brought. It was great to see everyone as always, and we go out into the local elections and the European elections fighting to elect as many Labour representatives to the local council and to the European Parliament. So over to Councillor Rob O'Donoghue.
To our great chair, Lisa Connell.
All right, guys, we get straight into it. Great conference, great people. Thank you for having me. That means if that passes, I only have to do this once every 2 years. Do the special. Oh, no. All right. Good pace, otherwise we'll be here all day. The people's flag is deepest red, we sheltered off our martyred dead, and ere it flames through cliff and cold, our heart's blood dyed its every fold. So wave the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards cringe and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. It waved above our infant might when all ahead seemed dark as night. It witnessed many a deed and vow. We must not change its colour now. So wave the scarlet standard high. Beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards cringe and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. It suits today the meek and base, whose mind is filled of nice at last. The banner's bright, the symbol plain, of human right and human gain. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards cringe and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. It suits today the meek and base, whose minds are filled with pelf and place, to cringe before the rich man's frown and haul the sacred emblem down. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards cringe and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. With heads uncovered, swear we all to bear it onwards till we fall. Come dungeons dark or gallows grim, this song will be our parting hymn. So raise the scarlet standard high, beneath its shade we live and die. Though cowards cringe and traitors sneer, we'll keep the red flag flying here. Good luck, conference. I'll see you in 2 years.
Sirens sounding out, are we going to war? A film of yesterday on a broken down door. Send me something real to ignore or explore, and I'll show you all the things that I saw. something real for the way that I feel, and I'll show you all the things that I've seen today. The words don't mean enough for us to say, for us to say today, to still the moment that we gave away, we gave away. Today, we hold the light that travels into space, into space.